here. So good morning, John. If you will say good morning, they will see you right off the bat.
Good morning, Catherine. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be with you today.
Awesome. And so I'm going to tell you just a little bit, even though Ken is not here, let me tell you just a smidgen about Ken. He is a best-selling author, speaker, and active consultant in organizational leadership. He counsels senior leaders and leadership teams at healthcare, technology, pharmaceutical, and biotech organizations, among many. He and his partner, Heather, founded Third River Partners, which provides leadership development and change management services. And he holds a doctorate in organizational behavior from Purdue. He has a master's in management from the Air Force Institute of Technology and a Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Science from the United States Air Force Academy. He lives in Pittsburgh and New York, and we're very sorry that he just could not get connected into our session today. But we do have Dr. John Stalwart, who's also a best-selling author, internationally recognized speaker, and expert in growing great leaders, which I love. He equips great leaders to bring out the very best in their people. He's the president of Newton Institute and director of its Center for Serving Leadership, enabling individual, organizational, and community transformation based on the 5 actions in the serving leader that we'll be talking about today. And his passion is cultivating a worldwide community of serving leader practitioners. He worked 18 years for Pittsburgh Leadership Foundation, serving as its president and CEO, and was the founder of Serving Ventures, Pittsburgh Urban Leadership Service Experience, which I love, the acronym PULSE. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Leadership Foundations Training Institute and the Union Project, and I'm not sure if I pronounced this correctly,
Amachi, Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he lives in Pittsburgh with his wife, and again, pronunciation, make sure you correct me, Milanica?
Perfect, Milanica.
Yes, and congratulations, Ken and John, Ken not being here, on your 10th anniversary version of The Serving Leader.
Thank you very much.
I just checked Amazon, and 87% of your reviewers give you 5 stars on the book, which is pretty amazing when you look at the distribution of stars on reviews. And so your publisher, Barrett Kohler, obviously sees ongoing value in the work. So what do you think gives the serving leader such staying power?
Well, when the book was finished and published in 2003, Catherine, I wouldn't have had an answer to the question. I'll change your question slightly. How does this book provide distinctive value in the marketplace of leadership development? And I think that ties then directly to, will it have staying power, and now why has it had staying power? I have heard from many leaders and CEOs from around the world since the book came out, and the simplest way I can respond to that question is by giving you a sample of what I hear from leaders who read the book. It is simply this: read it, read your book, was moved by it. The story touched my heart at a personal level, touched that part in my life where I'm really wanting to have my work and my life matter and count for something, and captured what I'm actually doing. Again and again, I hear leaders saying, what your book describes, I've been doing, but I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't have a language for it prior to this book. I didn't have a way to get it out of me and into my organization, into my culture, into my people. And primarily, as I understand what's happened in the marketplace, Catherine, the sales of The Serving Leader over these 10 plus years has primarily been driven not through popularity of the book, but through working leaders who have driven the book through their organization as a key asset. to their work. I'll give you examples of this. Billy Ainsworth, CEO of Progress Rail, the train division of Caterpillar, makes it a must-read across the management structure of that division of Caterpillar with over 10,000 employees. Toby Cosgrove, the CEO of Cleveland Clinic, makes it a must-read across the system of the Cleveland Clinic. Industrial Scientific, the leading manufacturer of gas detection safety equipment in the world, founded by Kent McElhatton, who's now the chairman of the National Safety Council, considers it a central text for shaping the values of the people space and the understanding of how managers bring influence to bear that causes people to grow and customers to get served. So I think the staying power is driven by leaders in the real world, and that's the most satisfying answer I could imagine, and it seems to be true. So we're so pleased about that.
So, you know, the serving leader approach
Right.
was to share Mike Wilson's journey.
Right.
Instead of that typical how-to of a business or leadership focused book. So it allows the leader to learn as Mike learns.
Right.
So who is this Mike Wilson for our audience, and why, you know, what was it that inspired you to use his story in order to share the key messages in the book?
Well, Catherine, Mike Wilson is not every man or every woman, but Ken and I know a lot of Mike Wilsons, and in some measure, he is us. So let me answer your question this way. Mike Wilson is very well known to me. In some measure, and Ken would say the same thing. In some measure, his journey mirrors our journey. But even more importantly, we watch this journey in the life of a leader. Leaders reach a point. Well, let me go back. Before we are leaders, we are solo performers. We're men and women who were trained to do something because we thought we should do that, or someone told us we should, or we were good at it. And we went out into the workforce and we started doing that thing that we were trained to do, and we caught the attention of others. We were good at it. We hit our marks. We had some successes, and in gratitude for having done so well, somebody had the wise idea of promoting us into leadership. And the moment we got that promotion, our job changed entirely. And for the vast most part, nobody mentioned that it was going to. You know, superstar salesperson who gets promoted to sales manager has a new job. And it isn't, you know, double superstar salesperson. Now it's somebody who's responsible for the growth and the performance and the happiness and the fulfillment and the sense of purpose and the effectiveness of others. It's a brand new job. And so Mike Wilson, in some ways, stumbling his way, certainly grasping to get better, is a common leadership story that we encounter again and again. And we like this guy. We better like this guy because we are this guy. Catherine, you are this person. Leadership is a journey of growing. It's not a cram course with a test. It's a journey of growing that takes some time. And so Mike is a guy that allows us to see that in its real terms, not in cardboard terms, but real human terms, with the struggles and the humanity all allowed to show up in the man, because that's actually how it is for us, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So, you know, I've read other books. In fact, Mark Miller's recent book, Chestnut Checkers, also used the story of an individual. And again, much like our Mike Wilson in The Serving Leader, I think the power of telling the information through an individual story is that we can identify with the issues and challenges personally and professionally that
Right.
these leaders face.
Right.
And so as they learn and as the ideas are revealed, they resonate with us because we can identify with both the struggle and the learning and the success that comes from that learning. So it's easier for us to implement, I think, often when we use this approach. So I really enjoyed
Thank
that.
you.
Now let's see if we can share some content with our audience today. The Serving Leader covers the 5 powerful actions to transform your team, business, and community. So
Very
let's
good.
go ahead, and if you would give a quick overview of the 5.
So, at a high level, what Ken and I have paid attention to over the years are the behaviors of leaders that produce organizational excellence. The behaviors of leaders, not principles per se, or aspirational ideas, but concrete, learnable, measurable, masterable behaviors. What we benchmark from around the world are those simple behaviors. In the book, we call them actions, that we see leaders practicing with great intentionality, who are leaders that are producing great results, growing their people and pleasing their customers and serving the world. And so we work in 5 areas, the 5 actions of the serving leader. But let me name them. Action number 1 is called Run to Great Purpose. And that speaks to those behaviors which help our people understand why their work matters. Yeah, so what we've done, Catherine, is we've built a detailed training program, behavior by behavior. These slides will show us at a high level the 5 actions, but underneath Run to Great Purpose, we show what leaders are doing who want their work, their company to be viewed as a cause, and are able to transfer that want into reality. What it says here, of course, is people don't do their best work for an organization. They do their best work for a cause. We can say that a little differently, that we don't get extraordinary contribution from human beings just because they need a paycheck. We get extraordinary contribution from human beings because they want to be a part of something that matters and that makes a difference. Now, what we teach inside our training programs is what are the applications and the behaviors that cause that to become real. It's sort of a little bit like a meme to say people don't do their best work for an organization; they do their best work for a cause. Okay, good. How do you do that? And I think that the secret sauce to what we do, I know that across our work at the Center for Serving Leadership, in our cohorts, in the work we do inside companies with executive leaders around the United States, is we take that declaration and we turn it into applications. And so we have application exercises for each of these. But one of the things I'd like to say, it becomes really transparent quickly when we look at the leadership field, that leaders are starving to be shown how. And how do I do that? How will I get better at that? How will I measure that? How will I know that impacted my people? And if I want to say anything that's remembered today, I want to say that at the heart of the serving leader is a deep devotion to the application level of all of this. We're looking at a screen for the second action, upend the pyramid. We focus in upend the pyramid on growing the capacity of our people to increase. We have for example, a detailed delegation planner that we take leaders through. One of the most frequent things that I see at the Center for Serving Leadership in leadership and management struggle is poor delegation or incomplete delegation. And that's so fixable. And if we take a little bit of time and invest more deeply in the growth of our people as we're giving them more responsibility and authority. We get that time back in a very significant way. And so upend the pyramid is about getting underneath our people so that they can rise and become more. If I could, Catherine, there's a paradox I encounter everywhere in leaders that's related to upend the pyramid, and that is that um, when I walk leaders through the process of how to take work that they are currently doing and and move that work up and out of themselves and place it down into the hands of others
Mm-hmm.
so that others can become stronger. I hear leaders say, I don't have time to do that in a thorough and effective way. I'm so busy. I don't have time for that. And the paradox is we, in fact, don't have time to equip our people effectively to do more. And we don't because we don't do it. It's like a gerbil wheel we get on where we can't stop to help people get better because we haven't stopped to help people get better. And maybe some of the people who are listening are thinking, well, I have done some delegation and it didn't work. You know, the old saying, if you want a job done right, and you finish that by saying, do it yourself. The truth of the matter is, we can't do it ourselves. If you want a job done right, we have to delegate better. And so, just as an example, we teach how to do that effectively. Um, Built on Strengths uh, simply understands that our strengths are a combination of things we're good at and things that we have a motivation and a passion to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's called different things by different people. Um, in the world of what's called SEMA, it's called motivated ability. In the work of Gallup as well as Marcus Buckingham, that stand out. We understand that passion and ability must marry in strengths. It isn't enough for me to be good at something. I'm actually good at some stuff that I'd rather have a root canal than do. And what's going to happen if I'm really good at it and everybody says, boy, you're really good at that, John, and I despise it, is I will never become brilliant at that. It will not get my attention. And so in Built on Strengths, we show leaders, how do you get yourself really mapped thoroughly? How do you help your people understand one another thoroughly? And how do you increasingly align your teams in ways that each person can bring their broadest shoulders in service to the whole? There is no well-rounded leader. There are well-rounded teams,
Mm-hmm.
and we teach how to do that in Built on Strength. In Raise the Bar, we look at the values of an organization. We look at the standards that need to be elevated, and we look at some hiring practices as well. Um, uh, it's once you get strong values alignment and high standards in an organization, you want to embed those practices from hiring all the way through to how we track with people's performance and so forth. People have often associated servant leadership with softness, and I don't see that in the leaders I serve. The one thing that um, uh, gets you fired most easily in a servant-led organization is values violations. Uh,
Mm.
High standards really matter, and when you think about it, what kind of love is it um, that we might show a person if that love comes in the form of letting them get away with shoddy performance? People really want to do great work, and they, as that movie, The Contender, said a long time ago, we want to be a contender. We want to make a difference, and so in Raise the Bar, we lead against values and high standards, and we show leaders how to do that in a daily way. Um, well, this is a famous Peter Drucker quote, of course. 90% of what we call management consists of making it difficult for people to get stuff done. Um, uh, Drucker, for those who may read the book, Drucker is in The Serving Leader. I had the opportunity to spend a day with him in, I would say 2000. He was in a wheelchair at that point. And if you read The Serving Leader, or if you have read The Serving Leader, everything that comes out of the mouth of Martin Goldschmidt comes straight from Peter Drucker's insights, not word for word, but from his insights. Um, he really understood what brings transformation. And Blaze the Trail, we work at um, helping leaders understand that they are eventually going to have to make peace with the fact that they must teach. Well, I just hire good people who know what to do. That is fine. But if you want to maintain a distinctive value proposition in the marketplace, then you must understand that unique trail that you have blazed, and you must provide markers on that trail that people can follow. If you hire from your industry, you're going to have to train them in the special ways, the unique values, the unique purposefulness, the unique mannerisms of customer care or quality that mark your company. And you must get junk out of the way. We do some lean inside Blaze the Trail. Get junk out of the way, get obstacles out of the way. Stop having your people do stuff that some competitor does but makes no sense for you to do because of what your customers value. And it's one of the actions I enjoy the most, because it really lets us look under the hood of what's special about our company, our enterprise, our nonprofit, so that we can teach that, embed that into people within the organization. Inside Blaze the Trail, Catherine, we do a deep teaching planner and coaching planner. Okay, if I'm going to have to become a teacher, how do I do that? And so we take the leaders through a teaching planning process, have them work with a specific purpose on a person on their team, and make a plan to help that person up their game by taking them through a teaching process or a coaching process. And so we get very specific with the leaders we serve in helping them learn how to teach, what's great about their company, learning how to coach when it's a coaching moment, and understanding what's the difference. When do I teach and when do I coach?
Absolutely. And I think, you mentioned, what do we stop doing? I think it's really powerful for leaders to create, we have the to-do list. What's the to not do? What's our stop doing list? Right. And we need to analyze, what are these things that we've gotten caught up in committing to that really don't serve? What reports do our organizations create that nobody really looks at anymore? So time and effort is generated or consumed in generating these reports, and they don't hold value. And there's so much opportunity for us to look at that and to be really mindful.
One of my clients, owner of a wonderful manufacturing company in Ohio, came through a primary thing I think I mentioned earlier that Center for Serving Leadership does is we offer executive cohorts, and we do that in geographies around the country. One can examine, what cities we're in, when the upcoming cohorts are at Center for Serving Leadership. And I was with a group in Central Ohio. We had 16 business owners together overseeing through these accounts. Sam Yoder is this man's name. Maybe he's watching. Sam said, one of the things we're starting to do inside our company, a company called Berlin Gardens, beautiful company, at manufacturing outdoor furniture, is we ask ourselves and we ask one another, this thing we're doing right now, does our customer really want to pay for this? And that vivid, clear eye on, is this valuable? Well, who's to say it's valuable? Well, let's begin by wondering what the customer would think about the value of this. It's a wonderful question related to your stop doing things list comment, Catherine. There are things we shouldn't be doing. We do them because we do them. We do them because we did them. But I love Sam's instinct. This thing I'm doing, is this what the customer wants to say? spend their money on. They have an acute sense of what they appreciate and value when they do business with us. Is this part of that, or is this just something we made up in our head?
Yes, yes. So you've done an awesome overview of the key principles of the book. Before we start Q&A, I'd like to just take a quick moment to encourage our viewers to go ahead and buy their own copy of The Serving Leaders from your favorite bookseller, whatever it is that where you like to source your reading material. It can be found on both the big vendors, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and you can also find it in your local Christian bookstore. I know there's a Kindle version. Is there also iBooks?
There's a Kindle version and there's an Audible version as well.
Okay, awesome. And so if you have read the book, if you're one of our viewers that has read the book, please take some time to share a review on Amazon. I know that's really important to any book launch. And since this is actually the 10th anniversary is a new book launch, your thoughts are really valuable to positioning that book in the marketplace. So
and may I add, Catherine, that there's an entirely new chapter in the second edition. What we did is we updated the story of Mike a bit and walked through each of the 5 actions in that final chapter in the context of real world, real business experiences that our character Mike had, and people are really enjoying the new chapter. And so even if people have read it before, I have a lot of clients who are getting it because they want to see where the story goes and what happens next with Mike.
Awesome. So you actually shared some of this at the very beginning, but I want to give you an opportunity to touch on it briefly again. Yep. That the front matter of the book and the reviews in Amazon have testimonials as well about results. Would you like to share a couple of, I think you talked a couple of what some people have said, but perhaps there's some others that you would like to share.
You want me to talk about business results or reader reviews? Which are you asking, Kathy?
I think when people take this on and it transforms them or their business, those are the kinds of things that it's important for. Maybe some of our audience hasn't read the book yet, and this gives them the why. Why should they go out and get that book?
Yep. Let me tell you, I'll try to do this real quick so I can tell several. I've had the privilege since this book came out of serving several thousand leaders and walking them through it, and it's the most delightful and uplifting work. Puts me over the moon when I see leaders taking this straight to work. So I'll give you a couple of examples. It's fascinating to me how the application of these practices moves in a lot of directions, and so I want to give some diversity to this. I took a group of executives in Hong Kong where I'm an adjunct faculty member at a graduate leadership program in Kowloon. Through these 5 actions, I do this periodically. And one of my students, a Singaporean banker in Hong Kong, deputy CEO of Bank of China, second largest bank in China, second largest bank in the world, went through this with me. And he was working on a doctorate while he was running the bank, and he focused on upend the pyramid. He focused on upend the pyramid as the deputy CEO of the Bank of China, and inside upend the pyramid, he focused on a small application that I had designed and that I teach in every executive group I'm in on how to take the care and the value and the love we hold for our people and behavioralize it in such a way that they recognize it as love. And I think we know since Southwest Airlines and some other, Tim Sanders and others, that love is an okay, in fact, a very imperative part of our world. Isn't it interesting that human beings actually want to know that we value them, not just as a tool, but as a person? And so, and I know a lot of leaders, Catherine, who love their people, but the people don't know it. And it doesn't count. If the people don't know, then it's not good stuff that way. And what David did is he took this small exercise that I teach about certain things to do to take the reality of value and love and live it out in a way that people begin to recognize, wow, that person knows me, that person cares about me, that person is thinking about me, that person is for me. And David reports that it was transformational to the bank. One of the smallest little tools I've built. He did it with his executive assistant. He did it with his chief investment officer, and discovered amazing things that, though he had worked with them for years, he didn't know, and was able to become an ally to their growth at a completely different register, in significant ways transforming the rest of those individuals' careers. That's an example. Working with a general manager of a large specialty food company in the Midwest, this gentleman took the serving leader actions that we taught home to his work as dad and his work as husband. And he and his wife have told this story many times. His wife became aware that at his company, his workers really loved working for him. I'll name this company. It's Walnut Creek Foods, beautiful company in Central Ohio, and I'm talking about Julian Koblenz, and I do so with his permission. And his wife said, "Your workers really love working for you." And Julian said, "Yeah, it's such a blessing." And she said, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing that's causing that?" And Julian said, "I really do. I know what I'm doing." And that right there is such an encouraging comment to me, to have somebody that I've been able to serve be able to get clear about some stuff. I do. I know what I'm doing that is causing my workers to experience this place as a good place. And Brenda became quiet for a second. She said, "Could you do that at home?" And
yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm not singling Julian out. Actually, he's ahead of the curve for all of us. I know in my own life, and I know in the lives of a lot of men in leadership, that we can be a little late to the party of integrating these things. And Julian said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I can." And he integrated everything he learned through the serving leader into a plan back at home with his young children. And what they did is just absolutely beautiful. It was such a delight to watch. I'll give you one more example. Working with a police officer, a sergeant in a suburb of Chicago, who's in my last Chicago group. I think I'll leave name off here in this case, but this great cop working day shift came to the realization that because of the press, the media, and the nature of day shift, he couldn't work at police culture transformation as effectively during the day. There were more politics. And so he volunteered back, though he had seniority, he volunteered back to night shift, where he knew that he could implement things with greater latitude because everybody's asleep and the press is asleep and so forth, and nobody's trying to get airtime on something. And so he began implementing, how do we treat our neighbors here? What is the policing process if we understand ourselves to be serving leaders? We're there to serve our community. Of course, we're there to protect our neighbors from wrongdoers, but we're not there to make it worse. We're there to make it better. And his demonstration of that on night shift with a group of guys who really were hungry for better leadership was just beautiful. And Catherine, I could go on and on and on. I want to make a comment. We uh, we look at a lot of news stories of companies that do bad things, leaders that do bad things, and of course there is a leadership problem in our world. There's no question about that. It's a dangerous time, but but the press is not interested in good leaders. And my experience is that the numbers of really beautiful men and women doing good things in leadership in this country and around the world is that that's the big story in the world. We
Mm.
don't hear about all the good companies. We don't hear all about the self-sacrificial leaders, the serving leaders, but they are many, many, many. You're not going to get a news story about, a moral, ethical, loving, disciplined, focused, self-sacrificial leader on the front page of the New York Times. But they are many. And I would want leaders who are listening to this, who may feel very lonely, to understand that they're in good company. They are in
Yes,
excellent company.
yes, I agree.
Show me an organization that's delivering good value to customers, and I'll show you a serving leader at the helm, quietly going about her job, his job, in beautiful ways.
One of the things that I really appreciated about the book is that anecdotally, um, you both shared stories of how the serving leader approach works in communities, in
Right,
nonprofits, in business organizations,
right,
and government. But what I really think is interesting is that one of the stories involved Mike meeting with and engaging with a military officer. And I know that we have someone who serves on in our audience today.
right.
So tell us a little bit about what that learning was about and how, um, because we don't often think of the military learning leadership differently. That they have these historical ways of imparting leadership and design throughout the services. And so it was interesting that in this story, we also have Mike's exposure to the naval officer. Could you share a bit about that?
Well, I'll make a couple of comments. One is that I think the smartest business leaders in America are the business leaders who hire vets.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
uh, there isn't any question in my mind that if not the finest leadership development opportunities on earth, if perhaps among the best, but if not the best, are the armed services, the branches of the United States military. And stop and think about this for a little bit. Um, a military leader who is out with a platoon of soldiers in a dangerous situation is leading. I'll use the pronoun of he just to keep this simple, is leading his men into harm's way. How do you do that? Understand, he is going forward with men coming behind toward danger. In that moment, you need to be an extraordinary leader because people behind you don't have to follow you. In fact, people behind you can do things to you if they aren't pleased with your leadership. The capacity in the armed services through the training that I've seen across the branches of the military to show what true leadership is, how to truly win trust and confidence, and to show true love, uh, to follow strict principles that people can be confident in. Never we never leave a man behind. Think about that. Why is that so important? Because that represents a principle that you matter to us, and we're not leaving you behind. We can't ask people to run toward harm unless we have done an extraordinary job of winning their hearts. And so,
mhm,
I grew up in a part of society where military service was not practiced. I came out of the Mennonite and Amish tradition. I have the utmost admiration as I've gotten older and spent a great deal of time under the mentorship of a two-star Marine general who was on my board. One of my key mentors is a United States Naval Academy grad, 1966, quarterback behind Roger Staubach. My mentor, my friend Bruce Bickle, 3 tours in Vietnam. I have the deepest admiration for the leadership training that comes out of our military, and that someone might want to pick up the book by Francis Hesselbein, Be No Do, Leadership, the Army Way. So shout out to the great job of developing leaders that's taking place in our armed services.
That's great. Now, as individual leaders, we can read the book and find it very powerful for ourselves, and we begin to work to implement. But the power is multiplied when we extend that into our organization.
Right. Correct.
So how would you say that this usually happens? We have the lone reader, and now they're excited about how that's been working, and they want to get that multiplier effect.
So a number of ways. If you look in my hometown, a number of years ago, our large grocer, Giant Eagle, had a lone reader. I didn't know about Mr. Brem, Mr. Neil Brem at the time. I didn't know what he was doing, but he had read the book, and he developed a small study aid for the book. Neil became part of my company, and so I have that little study aid that he developed for Giant Eagle. So at the simplest level, study circles. Let's read the book together and talk about it. Sometimes we overthink these things, Catherine. I know that when the serving leader was implemented across the Cleveland Clinic system, there were study circles as part of that. This is true in the rail division of Caterpillar and other places. Secondly, what we do at Center for Serving Leadership is one of our favorite deliveries of all of this training is to a group of senior leaders together from multiple companies. And that's important to us because getting clear about this at the executive suite level matters.
Yes.
There are some things you just can't delegate. I can't be a heavy-fisted leader and then delegate that someone else should make my company a serving leader company. It doesn't work that way. And so we like to work with senior leaders in a cohort, which I've talked about earlier during our time here in this hour. But then, and secondly, I like to do that because those senior leaders get to walk through the entire canvas of resources and tools that we have, and they very quickly can pinpoint and say, I see the gamut of the resources that you have at Center for Serving Leadership, and I'm clearer now about where we're already strong at our company, and I'm very clear about a couple of areas that are low-hanging fruit for us to get better. Would you bring those tools inside and gather us in groups of leaders and followers, and let's just drive that piece down. Let's just work on raise the bar in 2016. We're not going to do everything because that's something we need to get better at. We've been talking about the fact that we're not living our values very well, and we don't know how to embed them. Let's work on that. Let's help everybody who comes to this business every day to have a more personal and emotional reason to care about their work. Let's do run to great purpose, because I know that's where we're lacking. And so Rome wasn't built in a day, Catherine. Our leadership journey isn't one meal and then we're full. And our organizations can't do all the development they need to do all at once. And so we take it piece by piece. This year we do something, anchor it in, embed it, make it real. Let's not have training du jour. Last month we did this. This month we're doing that. That isn't wise leadership. And so I like working with senior leaders, and then I like helping them discern what's the next thing we should, with studious and intentional focus, work on, and let's stick with it until it really lives, And let's not be introducing, the new fancy thing every month. Let's stick with it.
Shiny object syndrome.
Consistency until this organization and our people really believe and know that this is here to stay. And I counsel patience, and I counsel consistency, and I counsel intentionality. Take it step by step, and and don't be caught up with shiny object syndrome. The latest thing. Our organizations can't handle that kind of go left, go right. Now we're doing this program. Now we're doing that program. The organization can't handle it. And we have to really steward the growth and development over years in our organization.
So I'm going to pop up a screen real quick. That should now be available for people to see. And John, thank you so much for sharing about your work and the serving leader today.
Thank you for having me.
And so, John, any last words, thoughts that you'd like to share before we close off?
Well, my last word is a word of encouragement. Becoming a better leader resembles the maturation process. Not the learning process. There's learning involved, as there is in maturation, but becoming a good leader is a lifetime of growing. And I encourage you to find friends for the journey. It's one of the reasons I like cohorts. We aren't what we should be, but we aren't what we used to be either. And I just want to speak encouragement to people who are watching. Get yourself into a room with people that you can grow with, and get support and encouragement. It's such important work. Our world desperately needs serving leaders, and I encourage you to make the commitment to grow into one.
Awesome. So just a final note, here's the image of the book once more, and I'd encourage you to get your own copy. Again, you can find it in many locations for booksellers. And then share what you've learned with others. In addition, as good leaders, we value honest critique. So if you would be kind enough, once you've read the book, to share your thoughts on Amazon as one of the reviews, we would really appreciate that. And don't forget to send me an email with your feedback of a key takeaway that you learned today. If you do subscribe to Leadistics, you will get future updates on our leadership-focused blogs and webinars. And so with that, I'm going to tell you, go forth and do great things. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.